Okay, so moving on is chapter 2, which is on surds. Surds is basically your square root lah. Huh? Your, numbers such as 2 square root 3, 5 square root 17, whatever. Where the number inside the square root is a number that cannot be square root. Meaning like you won't see something such as 5 square root 4. Nah, you won't see that. Because 4 can be square root to get, square root of 4 is equal to 2. So you won't see that. You either see a prime number or a number that cannot be square rooted. Okay, anyway. So for question 1, it says that a rectangular block has a square base of side square root 6 plus square root 2 cm and a height of h cm. The volume of the rectangular block is 16 plus 4 square root 3 cm cubed. Without using a calculator, show that h can be expressed as a plus b square root 3 where a and b are integers. So as always, when you see the phrase without using a calculator, right? What this means is that they don't want you to directly just punch all these values into the calculator and give them a final answer, because that is number one, not testing you on your grasp of surds. And number two, it's kind of obvious that it'll be use a calculator, so that kind of defeats the whole point of it. Okay? But this doesn't mean that you can't use a calculator at all. You can use a calculator to check your answer. And in fact, right, I feel that when such questions come out, right, perhaps you should be delighted, because it means that you can use a calculator to check. So in a way, you are kind of secured the marks. If your final answer is the same as what the calculator is showing you, then you know that you have gotten it correct already. So you're on the right track and you don't have to worry much. Then the full 5 marks will be yours. Okay? And another thing about questions that says without using a calculator is that you have to be a bit more explicit in your working. Like the markers will want to see every step of your thought process. Otherwise, sometimes they'll be like, wait, how do you get here? Do you use a calculator? Then depending on the marker, you may or may not lose some marks due to the clarity of your workings. Okay? So anyway, this is how the diagram look like. I believe that in the exam, should you encounter such a question, the diagram will have already been drawn for you. Often than not, right, if the question is a bit complicated, right, then what the markers usually do is that they provide you with a diagram so that you'll be better able to understand what the question is talking about. Okay. Anyway, for this question, the first thing you have to do is to find the height, because they're given the length and the breadth, which is essentially the same thing because it's a square base, and then you are given the volume. So you just need to find the height by dividing it. Okay, so just divide it by the base area, and then you get the final answer. So yeah, afterwards, as I was saying, the way to check is you punch this into your calculator, you get the value, and then you see if it's the same as the calculator value for this. That is the way to go about checking questions like this. If your answer for this is the same as your answer for this, then yes, you have definitely done your workings correctly. If not, you better go back and check where you have gone wrong. Okay. For questions like this, I would say that it is fairly simple. It's just that it's very easy to make mistakes along the way because you have a lot of certs. So then you'll be, you might get confused, or else when you're rushing for time, you might make a careless mistake here and there, such as forgetting to put your square root or forgetting to square something. I would say that for me personally, right, one mistake that I tend to make when I'm rushing for time is that for the square root of for the square of square root 6, right, I will write 36. because I squared 6 instead of it, like when you're rushing for time. So take note, like, especially for those of y'all who might make the same mistake as me. The square of square root 6 is just 6. You just get rid of the square root sign. Okay.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
For how do you get to the set 4 plus square root 3 over 2 plus square root 3 times 2 minus square root 3 over 2 minus square root 3?
Oh, are you asking about this step? Like, how does it come about? Are you trying to ask, like, you don't understand how like why you need to times this value, is it? Uh, is that what you're asking about? Okay. So for this step, right, basically why you need to times 2 minus square root 3, right, is because for questions on surds, right, when you're left with an answer like this, you want to get rid of the surds in the denominator. You can leave your answer with a whole number, like in the denominator, but you want to get rid of the surd in the denominator. So the way to go about doing it, right, is that you will always multiply it with the opposite sign of whatever's at the bottom. Meaning if this is a 2 plus square root 3, right, then you will times a 2 minus square root 3. Why is that the case? Is that we are making use of the rule is a plus b, a minus b equal a square minus b square. So if you are able to use this rule, right, so what we do is that over here, see, this is like your a plus b, a minus b, right? It's a square minus b square. Can you see it? That way we'll be able to get rid of the surds in the denominator, and then we end up with just a nice number on top. Even if, say, right, your denominator ends up with like, I don't know, a number 7 or something, that is perfectly fine because it's just an integer at the bottom. What we do not want is to have a surd in the denominator. So yeah, that is something that you all must know of, and I forgot to mention it earlier. So thank you for bringing it up to me. So yeah, that let me see if there's anything else I need to say about this. Yeah, okay. So why is it 2 minus square root 3 over 2 minus square root 3, right? It's because this number will be equal to 1. So in a way, you're not changing the value of this. You're just manipulating it in a different form. Because the value of okay, wait, this is so confusing. Okay. Because the value of this and these two will be the same. Yeah, over here you're just multiplying it by the value of 1. This will be equal to 1, right? So you know that any value times 1 is the original value. So yeah. Does that answer your question? Yes? No? I'm sorry, I didn't catch your response. Or you can give me a thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yes. Yes.
Yes? Okay, thank you very much for the question. Yeah, if you have any questions, just feel free to ask me, yeah? Because if you auto flag out to me, sometimes I also forget to like go through important points such as this part. This part can be quite confusing as well, but I feel that after you all practice it a few more times, right, you all will get the hang of it. So yeah, usually this will happen, right, for a search question, and then you want to get rid of the search in the denominator. Okay? Yeah. So you just multiply it by a number that can be equal to 1, such as over here. And that value must be able to get rid of your surd in the denominator. So for A math, right, because we like to leave our answers in exact form, another thing that I must say is that when you end up with questions like this, with answers like this, right, you must get rid of the surds at the bottom. Whether or not you will be penalized if you were to leave your answer like this, I honestly don't quite remember, but I know that it'll be definitely frowned upon. I think that whether you be penalized or not ultimately still depends on your marker. If your marker is feeling lenient, they'll just tell you that this is not the simplified form. If your marker is a bit more anal about the way you're presenting your answers, then you might be penalized 1 mark for this. Because they'll say that this is not the final form that you can leave it. And anyway, for this question, you will be penalized because I just realized the question asked you to leave it in this form. The question didn't ask you to leave it in fraction form. So you are forced to get rid of the denominator in this case. But in other cases where if they didn't say this part on show that h can be expressed as a plus b squared root 3, then I think that it really depends on your luck whether or not you will be penalized. Okay? If there's nothing else, then we shall move on